From Xinjiang to the internal surveillance state that China propagates against its own people, everybody knows what the CCP is. The fact that they're given this platform is absolutely unconscionable. So I would say my top area that I'm worried about when it comes to directly looking at American interests versus Chinese interests is the increasing strides that China is making in interoperability. So their ability for systems to talk to each other, right now confined to small pilot programs like you see with the social credit system in specific provinces. But if all of these systems, and then that encompasses the disparate data sets that these systems work through, if they are able to talk to each other, if you're able to integrate that data and use these systems to talk to one another, then China is going to have a strategic advantage over the United States. And what I mean is this. China has been hoovering up data from Americans, the OPM hack, the Equifax hack, the Anthem hack, the Marriott hack, and various other hard cyber vulnerabilities that they've exploited for American data. If they're able to integrate those seemingly disparate data sets, then they can detect patterns, identify anomalies, and basically target Americans for exploitation and other sort of monitoring. So if they are as an adept as a surveillance state as they are against their own people, you better believe that Americans and Americans' data is going to be in their crosshairs as well. I would say, secondly, their ability to parse through this technology. So developing artificial intelligence to glean insights from these data sets. So previously, a lot of this data ended up on the cutting room floor. You vacuum it all up, but you can't necessarily use all of it because you don't have the machines or the technology to adequately parse through it at scale. China's leaps and bounds in the field of AI development will allow them to parse through all of the data sets that I talked about previously, and again, draw more value from it than they could previously. And then third, the fact that there's an interconnectedness between the strategic intent of nation-state actors, general chaos agents in cyberspace, hacktivists, and patriotic netizens, all coalescing to make attribution much more murky. When you can't attribute specific things like hacks to specific nation-state actors, then it's much more difficult to impose costs. So as this haze becomes more and more or less and less defined, the United States is going to have a much tougher time signaling out who is actually responsible for some of these incursions in the digital space. On that end, to that end, I'm very interested in what's going to happen when there's a combination of hard cyber hacking with influence operations. So this would look like hacking a government-run state account and then using it to purvey genuine disinformation to the American people on behalf of a state-linked or state-sponsored operation. Those are the three things in the China tech world that I'm most worried about right now. The encroachment of freedom of expression, not just within China's borders, but outside China's borders, given the CCP's influence even on United States companies, that bothers me to the nth degree. When you look at what YouTube did when they took down a Kazakh human rights channel, briefly suspended it based off of China's protestations, that's a problem. When Microsoft's Bing, the search engine, censors images of Tank Man, that's a problem. When Zoom acquiesced to Beijing when it comes to a Chinese human rights activist, that's a problem. So the fact that these American private companies offer succor or seem even indifferent to the encroachment on freedom of expression outside of China's borders on their own platforms, that bothers me a lot. I'm looking for the Biden administration, as it responds to China's misbehavior, to co-opt what I call the global swing states. And this is a concept developed from CNAS's CEO, the Center for New American Security CEO, Richard Fontaine, who called global swing states those states with elements of authoritarian and democratic governance. So those like Indonesia, like India, like Brazil, we as the United States need to dictate the design of the products that these nations use so that they can be used for good rather than for ill, like surveillance and monitoring of internal populations. And what this would look like would be designing certain products with privacy in mind. So privacy by design, designing in those privacy preserving technologies to the products that these other nations can use and adopt that'll, I think, prove a bulwark to an ascendant China.